contest. So we can see that so many young people, young kids, they are quite curious about our broadcast. So here I'm actually at the playground and the competition ground of FLM. So this competition is already being started, but we are seeing that so many young kids, they are actually the kids preparing for the event. Let's have an interview with them. Could you give us a brief introduction? I actually come from the Guizhou municipality of China Province. Is this your first time to be in the event? Yes. So are you about to go to the competitions in a while? Yes. Have you ever participated in this national level event before? No, this is my first time. Do you feel nervous? Yes, a little bit. Is it quite complicated for you? I feel it's okay. Can you give us a brief introduction of your robot? For this part, it's about its engines. So if these engines are triggered, so this single bonded structure is going to be level up, and if you tourniquet this part, the general structure will be triggered. So are you going to be the next player? Yes. I wish you have a quite good performance in today's event. FLL's event, this year we are going to see several thousands of the testing points, and FLL competition is actually a competition starting from the other countries. So in today's event, we invited Liang Ying, the judge of this event. Nice to meet you. Because today's event, the major part is to give our viewers about the FLL robot engineering contest. But many of them might don't understand what is FLL. Can you give us a brief introduction? Dear viewers, good morning. So let me give you a brief introduction of this time's competitions. This competition is called FLL event. It's actually an international event. But we are seeing that what we are seeing is actually the competition started. The robot is using an arm, automatically operating the preset programs and finishing their targets. This is one part of FLL project. We call it Robot Playground Competition. The general FLL competition, apart from the playground competitions, we also have the project research, which is the Q&A sessions. And we also have the technical Q&A sessions and also the teamworks. So for this full part, we will have the relevant competitions and contests, and the final grade will be becoming the general target for all of them. So what does FLL means? FLL is actually initiated by the United States, a player in the robot engineering in the United States. The first F means first. The second part means Lego, and the third L means leg. So it's actually first Lego leg, a competition being co-organized by Lego and also the robots engineers. So in the United States, this competition is majorly being focused by the young kids from the 12 years old to 18 years old, but in China we actually enlarged and enrolled more kids. So starting from the year 2003, we actually introduced the FLL competitions, and we have over 15 years history attracting different students coming from different grades. We cannot calculate the number for all the students participating in our event because this is an event needs to be selected by different provinces and different municipalities. They have their own competitions. So generally speaking, there are so many different students participating in this event. So we can see that it's actually a widely accepted and widely adored competitions between different adolescents and children and kids. So for these 5 parts, we have the different points to be look at. We know that for VS, it's actually quite a confrontational event. And what's the features of FLL? So for VX, This is a quite confrontational event, and all the participants is controlling their robots to fight against each other. But for the FLL, it's actually looking at the preset programs to be dealt with the same question. This is actually programs being designed by the kids themselves. So this is a quite a viewable event. So because the preset playground is different, and the programs they have been written for the kids are also different, and the task is also different. So the final competitional part is that who have the best competitional result, who is going to perform the best. So today we are seeing so many different solutions. We can see representatives coming from 38 different elementary schools to address different issues, and they all have their own unique parts. So I think after that we will have a more detailed look at what their robot is being performed. And in today's tasks, we also have a task required the robot to turn over this lap. So this is actually a lap. Initially, it's been set like this. The robot needs to turn it over and flap it like this. So at the very beginning, when we started this task this year, many of our judges think this is a quite difficult task because we need to make the robot to turn such a small lap upside down. But in today's event, we are seeing that so many different representatives have finished this competition quite perfectly. So this is something we need to look at. Another part we want to talk about is, another task we want to talk about is that in the northeast corners of this playground, there is actually a black square. And inside the black square, we have a small column representing the clean waters. If they set up the two columns together and set it here, they can get a quite high incentive grades. And if we set these two together, it's also quite difficult for us to hold by the hand because it's too small. But the robots needs to carry one part from the southwest part to the northeast part and set it here and put the two together. This is also quite difficult for the competition teams to address. Of course, our current team did not enter into targets because there are 18 different tasks in the playground, and every single team needs to, based on their own performance, to finish whatever the tasks they want to do. Sometimes they might give up some of the difficult tasks to guarantee that the grade would be quite high. This is also one part of our thinkings. Another part is that we have a little bit different between the international competitions and the Chinese competitions. We have a test of the students' ability to address the difficulty, address the problems status on the playground. So before the playing, before the real task begins, we need to, select 4 different tasks among the 8 different tasks and delete them and eliminate them. So the 4 participants, 4 teams will make a draw and eliminate the 4 tasks. So that is to say, your preparations might not be finished. And if you finish these 4 tasks, it will cut your final performance. So that means all the students and all the team, when they entered into these competitions, and after they have understand the exact 14 tasks, they need to change their performance of the robot in order to go in line with the requirement of the competitions. So I don't know what is the process. So here we cannot give you a performance of the process, but I think today is quite a good thing for us to test about the student ability, about the adaptations today. We are going to see some of the brand new events happened in today's playground. So can you give us more detailed introductions about the competition's rule for the next years? So in this competition, it already has been finished. and I think a quite good competition. Since it's a first day, it's required 2 and 30 minutes for the robot to finish all the tasks. And all the team members is actually being gathered together at the base ground. And here, we have a small playground, and the students can only be working in these areas to control their robots to get rid of their robot arms. And here, we can see that this is a part of their robotic arms. And we also have these robotic arm parts being scattered around here. What is their robot? Their robot is actually on the playground. So on top of this, all of this might be located to this robot to change its final task. And the students, when they are doing this, they can only do it in this small basement, and all the operations needs to be finished in 2 and 30 minutes. 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So let me give you a more detailed introduction of the 18th tasks. This is actually an international competition. Every year we have this competition. And every year this playground, this general events, exhibition house being changed. And the tasks is also varied every year. This year we call it a river rains long. So this year, the reason why we set up this target is because we need to care about water resources in the current days. So we actually set up this long preserving water as one of our topic. So we can see that this robot is actually carrying on an ambulance and send this ambulance to the firing house. Of course, this is a quite symbolic models, and right now the robot is coming back to their basement and they need to finish their next targets. They need to go through one flaps and they set up one pump, and then the robots follow their previous set track. And here we did not see that the robot is setting up some of the models and some of the model flowers and put it into the flower pot. This is like watering the flowers. This is also a symbolic event. And this is actually a fire coating, and we also have a plastic plants and waterings, and all of them is actually related to water natural resources preservations. So this is closely related to this year's event and this year's theme of preserving waters. 18 different tasks closely related to waters, and we need to let these waters to be finished. And as we have in the previous years, and last year, our theme is about animal preservation, and all the tasks is actually being set up as the robot-related events. Of course, we have the product research and we have the Q&A sessions, and the product research is closely related to water resources preservation. So here, we want to have a quite close. Let me find one competition to look at from the very beginning to the end. Many of our viewers might not be quite clear with the FLL competitions, and within these 2 minutes, it's quite fierce competitions for the team members. They need to prepare for a year and even longer because this is a national event. And all the players, if they come to the national playing event, that is to say, they have undertaken a series of the cutthroat competitions to participate in the national event. We are going to witness a competition from the very beginning to the end. to see what is exactly FLL competition is. So we are seeing an event about to start. Let's look at this part. This is a two team competing in a similar playground, and they have the cooperational tasks. They also have another different part. And this year, we don't have so many competitional part. 3, 2, 1, start. So the robot is actually coming from the basement, and they have these small models. They need to finish these waters. So that is called water resources. And the models previously we look at is about the clouds after the raindrop actually comes down. So the robot needs to collect all the raindrops for the flower waterings. And right now the robot is being changed, so the robot reset it again. We can see that the robot's arms is being set up. So here, it's about turning over the labs. It did not finish the labs, but it actually gathered a quite good yellow representing tasks. We can see that students' operations a little bit off the rules. So this yellow pump is being collected by the judge. And then the student actually reset the pumps. And they also have a triangular. So the robot started again. And then they set it again using the sensors to change their positions. And this is one part of the robot competitions. It's also a quite important part in the robot technologies. So they actually threw apart their triangular traces. And if they want to did not finish turning over this lab again, because we talk about the turning over the labs is something quite difficult, although they designed some of the technicians to do it. So during the designing of that, they will operate on the real playground. They will be suffered from the other different influencing factors, including the temperatures, humidities. Failure is actually what we usually see in the competitions. If we just set up the programs on the computers, finally we will get successful. But for the competitions, that's the difference. This is also the most challengeable part. So the competition is about to come to the end. And finally, the robot is out of control. So the judge actually stopped the performance of the robot. This marks the end of the competitions, and the judge is going to give a grade to the tasks of the robots to see how much they can achieve. This is actually one competition starting from the first second to the final seconds. But of course, we will see teams with a better performance. Of course, from their performance, they are not that good. They are not that perfect. They are just the common teams, because this is their first competitions. The kids might get nervous by themselves, or the robot is not coming to its best status quo. And I think the students will come back and reset all the robots. And I think this is a part of what we are going to see. This is actually testing the students' ability to adapt it with all the changes in the playground. And sometimes they might change their areas, change their performance. Sometimes the team might sing that perfect. So here comes my question. Under such a cutthroat competitions, how do you grade different teams? We are calling these playground teams. We have 18 different tasks, and if we added up all the 18 different tasks together and achieve, so theoretically the highest grade would be 535 points. For example, if they turn over one lab, that means 15 points, and if they turn over 2 labs, that would be 30 points. And they also have the addictive incentive points. And for example, if the kids finish unexpected tasks and do not enter into certain areas, and this means we also have 13 points incentive points. And finally, they will have 16 points. And for every single task, the points are different. And if we added up all the points together, we will have the 30th best performance. And if we added up this is what we called the gradings from the events. So if we calculate all the different parts together, the final grade would be what the kids want to achieve. And if we can have unordered from the very beginning to the first, the top 60 team can have the first grade and first award. We will give them a golden award. This is a quite high honor. So I want to ask you about the small two players. We have watched a competition and we want to interview them. How do you see your performance? Not that good. Is it different from your previously training days? No. Will you prepared more when you were doing this? What kind of adjustment do you want to do it? We need to finish the task and repair it. Do you have separate tasks between each other? So we are actually quite complementary teams. The programs I can do, he's actually playing the coding part, and I'm actually designing the structures. I'm the engineer, he's the coder. The judge needs to talk to you. We can see that the two of them are quite calm about their own performance. And for every single participant, it's quite important for all of them. So let me give you a brief introduction. So here we are actually the CCTV interviewing the 18th China Adolescent Robotics Competitions and World Adolescent Robot Contest 2018. And we are actually undertaking China Robotic Competitions. For every year's competition, we actually undertake over 9,000 teams. And there are over 2,000 young students participating in events. After different selections, we are going to see that over 100 teams participating in this event, and there are 1,400 young students participating in events, because as Judge Liang have some of the emergencies, so I want to ask you what happened. So it's not closely related to the contest itself. This is a new attempt for our associations. So the competitions is actually catching up with the time. So I have this pad. So the pad is used for me to grade different students' performance. And for the students, after their competitions, they are using this pad to grade them, and every single task is going to be selected and graded. And in the past, we were using the pen and paper to write about different points, but today we are using this pad to grade the students. This is actually eliminating our misjudges during the competitions. And we also have the logic part. If the students is not finishing one task, definitely they are not going to finish another correlated tasks. So in the pen and paper areas, this kind of logic is not being built up among the pen and papers, but right now this logic is being built up by the tasks. The first task is about to get rid of the pumps. The second part is called delivering waters. And all these 18 different tasks is actually being correlated. And it's quite convenient system for us to upgrade our final points and these points is actually being received by my pass because I'm in charge of the general playground. And after my checks, if I find any logic mistakes or any obvious mistakes, I will enlighten the final results and change what I need. And if I did not find any questions, I actually uploaded into our general system. All the participants, they can actually search in their teams. Of course, they can use their mobile phones to enter into these robot competitions and search about their single points, and they will have a real-time performance. So at the very beginning, this competition, after its first days, they will have the final grade. But right now, the participants can have a real-time tracks of what they have performed. And of course, they were waiting for one day to finish. And after all the points is being tracked, the students will actually have a hand-on experience, have a real-time check about their performance. The judge is actually entered into the dilemma of the grading points. So I was addressing the judge's questions. So we are seeing a new game started. The current competition is a competition between the two different elementary schools. We check about the performance in the elementary schools. We have a quite good performance of the elementary school students. They are quite calm about the performance. In the previous years, we actually reported about that. Some of the students, because they are quite young, when their performance is not their ideal, sometimes they might cry. This is something quite common. But this year, when we are going to have a live broadcast of that, if you have any questions or interest about the FLL competitions, I welcome all of you to talk to us, and we will invite our judge to address these professional questions. So the robots is coming back to their starting areas, and it's restarted again. After turning over one flaps, we can see they are quite happy because their task is being finished quite perfectly. They are actually turning over the flaps. Wow, successful. This is what Judge Liang has mentioned about one difficult part of the team. Many different teams is difficult for them to finish the tasks. The robot is trying to find the ambulance and set up and put the ambulance at the hospital. "30 seconds left. They have some of the small questions occurred, and they need the judges to help them. There are only 10 seconds left for the competition. Right now, we recalculated the grade because the pump is being included, of course. Of course, water deliveries. Turning over the pumps. Waterings, yes. Filterings, yes. Not being filterings. Testing about the late two-part. And turning over the triangular parts, yes. 15 grades. Fertilizing, not being finished. Watering the flower, 30 points. So we have a quite good team to be seen at their performance. One team, I was dealing with an emergency, so I have a team coming from the Tibetan regions. Right now we have the representatives coming from the Tibet, and in the province competitions, it's quite difficult for us to see the competitors coming from Tibet. And their robot is actually being seen a block down. They are quite small players. They are actually the youngest kids participating in that part, but they are not being able to carry out the hardware of the robot. In a moment, all the robot is seeing a black kid. I was just helping them to reset their robots. But for the kids, they can also reset the robots. And for some of the kids, when they want to reset their robots, they just get rid of the batteries and reset of the batteries. If they take the batteries and put it again, it will cost their time. So here I use a quite simple method to help them reset the robots, and to make them going through the competitions quite smoothly. The competition just begins. Let's look at how they turn over the laps. They have something to turn over the laps. For them turning over the lap is something quite easy to achieve. And for this task, the robot is seeing some of the part being stretched out. To see whether they can see the flooding part, of course, is filled, and the kids reset the robots and taking over the uncontrolling parts and rescuing their under-controlling parts. But if they don't controlling the robots, and it will cost them time, this is one part of their strategies. They reset the robots and set up their next part. They actually work into the straight lines and reset about their parts tracks and turning it over. So using this part, they don't need to, by following these words, they don't need to specifically going through with these sensors. They actually turn up the flowers quite quickly. As I mentioned, a quite challengeable part about putting these two columns together. This is a quite difficult part, right? Yes. So we can see that the students reset their part again. If they want to, the robot takes a long time to go back to their basement. So they need to actually carry their robot back, but I think they have a quite good performance today. Let's have an interview of the two cases today. How does they give evaluations of their performance today? You just finished about the competitions. How do you feel about your own performance? Not that good. I'm not quite satisfied. But you turned over the laps. This is something we have done and have a quite good successful rates. But for other different tasks, we have a better performance. So which part do you think that we are actually lagging behind? The ambulance is not that good. So when you were coding and set it up, we think the ambulance is a quite confident part, right? So why did you? So you are coming from the Beijing academies, So how many times did you participate in the FLF competition? This is actually the 18th times. We participated in the 17th times. So you are quite experienced competitors, right? So every year you school participated in these competitions, right? I just started my competition career, starting from last year. So the competition will continue, and we will have a 4 round. You will have enough time to address your robot. What kind of preparation will you do? I need to turn over my robotic arms and reset up the ambulance codings and make it more details. Are you going to enter into the next competitions, right? So we are waiting for the next competitions. We have a short period for us to adjust our performance. I wish you have a quite good performance. So we are quite admire about the current elementary school student. They have all kinds of mental preparations, and also the although there are some failures, they actually prepared and reset themselves again, as introduced by Judge Jiang. And there are 18 different tasks, but when they entered into the competitions, 4 of them is being eliminated, and they need to reset about their tasks. They need to they need to recode the robots at this playground. As I introduced you, we have 5 different parts of competitions, and today I'm actually introduce you the FLL robot engineering competitions. In the future days, we are going to use our platform to give you different demonstrations about other different events. So the competition is going to continue, and we are going to have a more focus on this part. Thank you very much for watching our competitions, and we also want to thank Judge Liang for giving us such insightful interpretations. This marks the end of today's event,